president made it very clear that he thought that the Department of Education, should totally go away. And he said that my successful job will be to put myself out of a job. So, I'm working to fulfill that mandate that he gave to me, and that's the directive.
Yes, Education Secretary Linda McMahon on Newsmax TV. Newsmax TV, that's my nighttime job as Newsmax TV. Chris Plant and the Right Squad at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That should be 7 o'clock on the West Coast. Depending, because the Democrats, they can corrupt the rotation of the earth. They might have to firebomb a bunch of stuff. But they're okay with that. They like that. Little Jimi Hendrix for our Friday morning. And a very good Friday to you. We remain at 888-630-9625. Yesterday, President Trump signing an executive order. We like to call them EOs, in Washington. We just call them EOs. So we have to abbreviate everything, turn it into code. Have to learn an entirely new language to follow what's going on in Washington. It's part of that whole, it's inclusivity. They like that word, inclusivity. I don't think they know what it means, though. NBC News was very angry yesterday with the headline, Trump set to sign executive order shuttering the Education Department. Closing the department requires an act of Congress, NBC Fake News reports. But Trump could make it nearly impossible for remaining employees to carry out their work, much like USAID. Are they still doing free circumcisions in Africa and free AIDS drugs for street prostitutes in South Africa? And what are we doing? Putting on transgender theater, transgender musical shows in various B-pole countries around the world, because we're very generous with our tax dollars. When the Democrats have them, they pick a lot of really weird things to fund, though. A lot of it has to do with cross-dressing. Oh, yeah, speaking of which, did you see the firebombing? I'm not going to get to this right now, but I'm going to get to it in a bit. The firebombing anti-Tesla lunatics, a number of them are trannies. They're cross-dressing, purple-haired trannies. They think they're ladies. But they're not. That might be a sign of mental illness. That's going to be their defense, when they get caught in their firebombing, Molotov cocktails being thrown at Tesla dealers, shooting up the storefronts with rifles, all that. In fact, one of them showed up with an AR-15. One of the tranny firebombers showed up with an AR-15, which I'm sure he wants to ban while he thinks he's a lady and is throwing Molotov cocktails at the targets of their political ire. But yesterday, MSDNC and NBC Fake News very angry. President Donald Trump is expected to sign an executive order Thursday to close the Education Department, fulfilling a years-long pledge to dismantle the federal agency, the White House confirmed. Trump will hold an event at the White House to sign the order, directing Education Secretary Linda McMahon to take all necessary steps to facilitate the closure of the Department of Education and return education authority to the states while continuing to ensure the effective and uninterrupted delivery of services, programs, and benefits on which Americans rely. USA Today first reported, that's the NBC News, they don't do their own reporting. USA Today first reported that Trump will sign the order Thursday. Is that a scoop or something? Because I think it's on the schedule on the internet, but never mind that. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who they resent very deeply because she's so normal, shared the story Thursday morning in a post on X, writing in all capital letters that the signing was happening today at 4 p.m. Eastern. She's trying to get your attention because you guys don't follow the news. I know you don't follow news. You don't even look at the White House schedule. You have no idea what's going on. Sure, formally closing the Department of Education requires an act of Congress, which is true. It was created by Congress. It's funded by Congress. But even without formally shutting it down, the Trump administration could effectively make it nearly impossible for employees to carry out their work. They're doing such a great job, aren't they? As it has done with the U.S. Agency for International Development. That's USAID. Some call it USAID. I like to call it USAID. President Jimmy Carter established the Department of Education in 1979 after Congress passed the Department of Education Organization Act in bipartisan votes. Of course, NBC News will tell you if one Republican voted for it, then they call it a bipartisan vote. All right, let's go to President Trump because this happened yesterday, and it left the news media very, very angry. Our great friend Heather Hunter, a great talk radio news producer at WMAL, my mothership radio station in Washington, D.C., and Heather Hunter was there with her kids at the White House, and wonderful, wonderful. She homeschools, right? Now she homeschools her kids. And if she lived in Illinois, they'd be passing a law telling her what she'd have to teach while homeschooling because the Democrats are very fascist when it comes to this stuff. So let's go to President Trump because yesterday at the White House, he had the event. He signed in front of everybody with the black Sharpie, the executive order, and held it up and showed it to everybody. Joe Biden, on the other hand, they used the auto pen behind closed doors while he was on vacation in the U.S. Virgin Islands to have the auto pen sign all these Joe Biden movements. The most movement we ever saw from Joe Biden, and we didn't even see it. All right, President Trump yesterday at the White House talking about his executive order to do away with the Department of Education.
Today we take a very historic action that was 45 years in the making. In a few moments, I will sign an executive order to begin eliminating the Federal Department of Education once and for all.
The people there are very happy about the idea. They're there because of the nature of the event, and they're not big fans of the federal government being involved in absolutely everything from your children. And, you know, the Democrats, they just want to change everybody's gender. And the younger, you know, down to kindergarten. And if you're a man in prison and you say you're a lady, they want to move you to a women's prison because the Democrat Party is unwell. Their brains are not working as designed. President Trump on the state of education in the United States.
We're not doing well with the world of education in this country, and we haven't for a long time. And we're pleased to be joined today by the woman who I chose because she's an extraordinary person, and hopefully she will be our last Secretary of Education, Linda McMahon. Linda, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Linda McMahon, and she is a remarkable woman who's been very, very successful in business, along with her, late husband and all that stuff. But she is a remarkable woman. There is no doubt about it. President Trump talking about Jimmy Carter creating the department.
When President Carter created the Federal Education Department in 1979, it was opposed by members of his own cabinet, as well as the American Federation of Teachers, the New York Times editorial board, and the famed Democrat Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan. History has proven them right, absolutely right.
Daniel Patrick Moynihan, a thinking Democrat when those existed. That was a long time ago. He's no longer with us, but he had some interesting and thoughtful moments in his career in politics, as senator, and all that kind of something of a neocon conservative Democrat in that time, but President Trump bringing it.
After 45 years, the United States spends more money on education by far than any other country, and spends likewise by far more money per pupil than any country, and it's not even close. But yet we rank near the bottom of the list in terms of success.
Pupil. I don't know. Ever since I was a little kid, the word pupil just kind of made me laugh. I don't know why. Pupil. Then it turned into a mighty butterfly. Something. Wait, a pupil? That's not a pupil. That's a pupa. Is that a pupa or a poopa? Which is that? And isn't one of them married to a member of the royal family? That's the sister, I think. President Trump on the scores. We've been checking how students do or pupils do across the country for decades now. Is it getting better and better thanks to the Department of Education?
70% of eighth graders are not proficient in either reading or in math. 70%. 40% of fourth graders lack even basic reading skills, can't read. Students in our public elementary and middle schools score worse in reading today than when the department opened.
Success.
By a lot. In Baltimore, 40% of the high schools have 0 students who can do basic mathematics. Not even the very simplest of mathematics.
Well, it's not fair to use Baltimore as an example, is it? Because, the Democrats, they sunk their teeth into Baltimore so long ago that, and there's a slur for people from Baltimore. One of my best friends, Randy, is from Baltimore. And, Baltimore's not far away from Washington, D.C. But what's the slang term for people from Baltimore? You know what it is? It's Baltimoreans. It's called Baltimoreans. That's what, it's a kind of a baseball game thing as much as anything else. But it's true that the schools in Baltimore have long been a national disgrace because the Democrats fixed the schools there long ago. They made everything better. The Democrats, they took over Baltimore, and now it's a work-free drug place where you're more likely to be shot than, have somebody offer to pick up your car keys and hand them back to you. And it can be a tough place at the city of Baltimore. And it has many fine qualities to it. It does downtown and around the baseball stadium and stuff. But it's got a real waterfront. Any city with a real waterfront is better than any city without a real waterfront. That's good stuff. And you remember that ship. That foreign ship, it was a foreign ship called the Dolly, crashed into the Francis Scott Key Bridge and collapsed it there in Baltimore Harbor. That was bad. Turns out that the city of Baltimore and the state of Maryland, the Democrats, they failed to do all the standard checks on the bridge, and they're a catastrophic failure. Everything the government touches, especially when Democrats are running the show, turns out to collapse like the Key Bridge when the Dolly crashed into it. Dolly like Salvador, not Parton, That's D-A-L-I, not D-O-L-L-Y, the ship, about that. President Trump pointing out, some of the great things that the Democrats are doing for education.
Despite these breathtaking failures, the department's discretionary budget has exploded by 600% in a very short period of time, and it employs bureaucrats in buildings all over Washington, D.C.
All over Washington, D.C., and the Fox News Channel reported a couple of days ago, both math and reading scores among 13-year-old students are at their lowest levels in decades, according to data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, which naturally they abbreviate as the NAEP, for the 2022-2023 school year. Now, they had the Wuhan out of China, which they lied to us about and all that stuff. Well, the Department of Education doesn't control how students perform on tests. It is responsible for issuing the requirements for schools to conduct standardized testing in schools, which have also reached their lowest scores in decades in 2024. So we're from the federal government, and we're here to help. So we create a government department, and over the decades, they make matters worse. Generations later, we're worse off than we were before we created the government agency. You are fired, as a great NBC show host used to say. I have more President Trump on this coming up, too. The all-new third-generation Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier has finally arrived on the scene, and it builds on the incredible success of the previous generations of the Eden Pure Thunderstorm, and they immediately became bestsellers and 5-star reviews all over Al Gore's amazing internet. The new Thunderstorm uses 2 technologies that studies have shown They help to kill 99.9% of bacteria and viruses, remove dust, pet stuff, and smoke, and a whole lot more from the air that you breathe at home, at your office, and gets rid of any odor. Plus, you don't have to buy filters to replace over and over again. You can hold one in your hand. They're only this big. I'm holding up my hand. The thunderstorm will get rid of any stinky smell guaranteed. I talk about litter boxes and smelly shoes, left-wing protesters. No match for the Eden Pure Thunderstorm. And now when you buy a Thunderstorm, you get another Thunderstorm for free. You buy 5, you get 5 for free. It's great stuff. Put them anywhere you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code ChrisBogo. That's EdenPureDeals.com, and the code is Chris, B-O-G-O, for buy one, get one. Yes, sir. Yeah, more President Trump coming up, and the courts, the schools, Elon Musk, the violent terrorist organization firebombing the world. That's the Democrat Party. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. Average test scores among students have fallen significantly since the Department of Education was created more than 40 years ago. All right, government. That's a dumber, less educated student graduate is a more likely Democrat Party voter. They want to breed generations of stupid people to vote for them. Both math and reading scores among 13-year-old students are at their lowest levels in decades, according to data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, NAEP, of course, for the 2022-2023 school year. But the decline, you can go back to 2015 before the Wuhan, and the decline is already there. Yes, sir. All right, let's take a phone call, Michael. Let's go to Randy calling from the great state of Missouri. Randy, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, everything's funny until somebody's killed in a road rage incident at a Tesla, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
I got a suggestion for President Trump.
Uh-huh.
Since all these ragers against Elon love ever expanding government,
Uh-huh.
how about President Trump come out and announce that he's expanding 3 agencies' scope, authority, and punitive ability. So he enables not only DOJ, the DOT, TSA, and the NTSB to press their own charges against these terrorists. So it looks like to me if they all come up with about 20 years each, you can put somebody in penitentiary for about 80 years.
That is interesting thinking. You know, I know that our Attorney General and the Department of Justice have said that they've arrested a number of transgender firebombing Democrat lunatics, looking at 5 years to 20 years in prison, according to our Attorney General. I'll update you on that, too. And another, people being attacked in Teslas. Now, the so-called teachers' unions, in fact, when the Education Department was created by Congress, there were Democrats and Republicans alike saying that this Education Department will only serve the interests of the teachers' unions. And what's with the teachers' unions? We've got this radical left commie, Randy Weingarten, and she's one of the commie teachers' union bosses, and they're like crime bosses. It's like On the Waterfront with Marlon Brando, the way these crooked unions are run. But I have one more, President Trump, because the Democrats are all like, what about the children? Shouldn't we abort them? And if they survive, we'll make them transgender and sever their genitalia? Because the Democrats. But President Trump said he kind of cut him off at the pass here with, we're going to take care of this and that and all the Democrat children.
The department's useful functions, Pell Grants, Title I funding, resources for children with disabilities and special needs will be preserved. They're going to be preserved in full and redistributed to various other agencies and departments that will take very good care of them.
Take very good care of them. Because you got all this money, this river of money. I'm a river to my people. That's Lawrence of Arabia. I'm a river to my people. Linda McMahon is the Secretary of the Department of Education, and President Trump wants her to be the last Secretary of the Department of Education. The Democrats have never seen a government department or agency or office that they don't want to grow by watering it with our money, which is why we're $36 trillion in debt, and it would take 1 million years to pay that off, because 36 trillion seconds is more than 1 million years. If we started paying it off at $1 a second, it would take 1 million years to pay it off at that rate. Linda McMahon, Secretary of Education.
I want Congress to be a partner in this, and I believe they will be, because both sides of the aisle know that what is happening to education in our country cannot be allowed to stand, because we are failing our students. We've spent almost $3 trillion. We've seen our scores continue to decline. We're doing something wrong. We need to change.
Yeah, that seems fair enough. But, if you're a common sense, normal person who recognizes that there are issues with anything, the Democrats will self-immolate or detonate their suicide vests in front of you to stop you from fixing what's wrong. Because the Democrats, speaking of communists, Randy Weingarten as the head of one of the teachers' unions, and Randy Weingarten was naturally on MSDNC yesterday because they're going to go to war to keep every government department open forever, because, the Democrat Party, they're amazing stuff. She is the head of the American Federation of Teachers, the AFT, Randy Weingarten, MSDNC, a marriage made in hell.
It is an assault on knowledge. It is an assault on what our kids need: curiosity, innovation, confidence in the future.
Hey, what's under that?
That's what's so stunning about this.
That's what's so stunning about it. Yeah, it's an assault on knowledge, because you guys are doing such a great job. Now, here's the thing about these, and she is a radical left-wing extremist. There are words but I won't use them here. But she's to say that she's no good. And let's keep in mind, the former president of the American Federation of Teachers, the AFT, was a man, as far as we can tell, named Albert Shanker. Albert Shanker was there before Randy Weingarten, the communist, took over. And he was asked a number of years ago now, when he was the president of the same teachers union, he said, well, what about the students? Do you represent, as the president of the National Teachers Union, the American Federation of Teachers, you represent the interests of the children, right? And, he scoffed, and he said, I'll start representing the kids when the kids start paying union dues. That's what he said. Albert Shanker, the president at the time of the American Federation of Teachers, the AFT, and wow, now Randy Weingarten, the communist that just played the soundbite from MSDNC, where there's no challenging anything, they just nod in agreement and say, yes, grow the government, because now that children are, the standardized test scores have dropped precipitously since we created a federal Department of Education. The Democrats consider that a success, because a stupid voter is a Democrat voter. An ignorant, uneducated, or ill-educated voter is a Democrat voter and might burn your Tesla with a Molotov cocktail. Yeah, but Albert Shanker, I'll start representing the kids when the kids start paying union dues. So he said it with a slight German accent, just a slight German accent. That is an amazing story, Albert Shanker. Yes, sir. Former National American Federation of Teachers President Albert Shanker. Yeah, when school children start paying union dues, then I'll start representing, that's just the students. That guy, honestly, should be catapulted into the ocean. Wah, wah, wah. Teachers' unions. They represent teachers, not students. That's kind of a problem. Speaking of the firebombing, there is an incident, yet another incident involving Teslas. A mom driving her Tesla near Seattle, Washington, where lots and lots of left-wing liberals live. And the Fox 13 station in Seattle has the story, caught on video, : they love their colons. Driver cuts off, harasses Tesla owner in Linwood, Washington. And it's a nice woman driving in her Tesla, and she's a lib. She's like, I'm saving the planet by driving an electric car. It's what all the lefties told me to do. The mother, she's a mom and a woman driving in her Tesla. Mother says she was harassed, threatened, cut off by another driver, Linwood, Washington, while driving a Tesla. There's video because she has I don't know, all Teslas have these video cameras like police cameras on the dashboard, but she does. Video captured a white SUV swerve in front of her in her Tesla, ripped around her, pulled in front of her, slammed on the brakes on the highway, and made her stop. And then this creepy guy, a big, overweight man who could skip a meal, and he's wearing a big, puffy, dark camouflage coat and a ski mask like he is a terrorist in Munich in 1972 at the Olympic Village. You know that one. Black September. He looks like he's a white guy, but he looks like Black September. We got to point it because the Democrats love to be racist. So a mother says she was harassed and cut off by another driver. She has the video for driving a Tesla, an incident she described as terrifying and unprovoked. The confrontation, which was caught on video, occurred while she was on her way to a doctor's appointment in Linwood, naturally on her way to a doctor's appointment. Now, the nice woman, it's amazing stuff, goes by Lee, L-E-I-G-H, Lee, and who's driven a Tesla for the past 2 years, said she first noticed the aggressive driver honking behind her as she approached a red light. And she's like, gosh, I'm so happy so fortunate I didn't have my kids with me. And there's video of it, and I've got the video right in front of me. They showed it on the local news did a TV news story on it.
I was thankfully by myself.
Lee was on the way to a doctor's appointment in Linwood Wednesday morning when she says all of a sudden a driver behind her just laid on the horn as they came up to a red light. Things spiraled out of control when a white SUV followed her and cut her off, stopping in the middle of the road.
Gets out and walks straight up to my window.
Storms.
So I cracked my window and I said, what is the problem? And he goes, you need to sell your car. This is a Nazi car. You're driving it. You need to sell your car.
This is a Nazi car. You need to sell it. And, they're doing this around the country. We did this on my television show on Newsmax last night, too. Democrats are threatening. Here's what they've done. They're getting they're doxing owners of Teslas, getting their home addresses, their work addresses, finding where their kids are going to school, publishing the information. Oh, and the cursor that they have on the website that they set up to dox people is a Molotov cocktail. And so you take your mouse and look, and it's a Molotov cocktail. And they've got your name and your home address and information about your kids, and they're ordering you to sell your Tesla. Otherwise, these terrorists, they're threatening you. The Fox station in Seattle.
Lee says she's been driving a Tesla for the last 2 years. She says a man wearing a camouflage jacket and a ski mask attacked her for it.
It's really sad, that this is what's happening. Being in Seattle, climate's important, our footprint's important. This seemed like the right move for our very busy family.
Seemed like the right move for our very busy family, and every liberal loved it. And it was a couple years ago before the psychotic Nazi party, Democrat party. They changed their minds about all this because they have tiny little brains. Just amazing stuff. And Lee, she doesn't want her last name used because she knows that these terrorists are out there terrorizing everybody. Just the Democrat Party today is a dangerous front group.
There was even a website, now taken down, sharing the personal information of Tesla owners to pressure them to sell their vehicles.
It was to align with what we thought, that it's easy to just, turn over a $60,000 car and find something new that works. That's not a decision that everybody can make overnight. And I think that puts a lot of us in a hard position.
Yeah, and this video, I got to say, this video is scary. It would not have been unreasonable for her to just run this guy over, because he was attacking her, looking like a Middle Eastern terrorist, and maybe in Europe, but with his ski mask covering his face and a hood and the big camouflage coat, and he's morbidly obese, and he jumps out of his vehicle as his big gas guzzling, looked like a Tahoe or something. And which idiot Democrat senator got rid of his Tesla and bought a? Was Senator Kelly or his brother? Yeah, okay, Senator, and he the astronaut guy who's like the biggest idiot astronaut we've ever had. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, but they stood up a website, and she didn't get into that. She should have gotten more into that, where the cursor that's used is a Molotov cocktail, and hey, there's my home address and my license plate number and my name and all the information about me, ordering me, this online terror group, to sell my Tesla or else. Wow, you guys are really something. And we played the Daily Show audio for you yesterday, night before last, on what's supposed to be a comedy show on what used to be a comedy channel. And it was never especially funny because Jon Stewart was never really that funny. He did have 22 writers, though, for a 22-minute show. And yesterday, we played this audio. It was night before last. On the Daily Show, they were showing videos of firebombing Tesla dealerships and shooting up the windows. And the Democrat crowd was cheering and clapping and loving the terrorism.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on
cheering and clapping and whooping it up and having a good time. Yay, woo, yeah, firebombing. You guys are Nazis. And then they go around calling everybody else and writing swastikas on. And Elon Musk just rescued those 2 American astronauts that Joe Biden left stranded in space for 9 months. And Elon Musk explained that he had offered to Joe Biden to go get the Americans, and he said no, because he's just smart enough to be a corrupt politician. And where was he getting all those tens of millions of dollars for the family again? Yeah. Man, our Democrat Party. They are truly something. Womp, womp, womp. All right, let's go to, let's see. Let's grab a telephone call. Let's go to Alan, calling from Chicago, Illinois, listening on the great WLS. Alan, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning, Chris. Democrats hate monopolies. They broke up AT&T. They went after Microsoft. Well, Ms. Weingarten said that 90% of Americans' children go to government schools. Doesn't that sound like a monopoly to you? Why would they not break that up? Well, because the Democrats control it and rely on it for money, lots of money. The mayor of Chicago, who's replacing Bozo, I think, he was put in office because of funding from the teachers union. And he's an activist, an educator. And when you look at Chicago public schools, they can't spell school. It's a disgrace.
Yeah.
And the idea that we wouldn't look at education as a failure that it actually is and do something about it is like going back to a restaurant where the food stinks.
Yeah, you're right. And let's go, Brandon. Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, is a catastrophe, a tragedy. The great city of Chicago under assault by the left. Remember when they had the riots and they had to raise the drawbridges over the Chicago River because the violent mobs of Democrats heading north looked like Visigoths in the Middle Ages storming the gates of Vienna. And they literally had to put up the drawbridges over the Chicago River. Truly amazing stuff. Ellen, the Democrat Party is a violent organization. I don't know how you can come to any other conclusion, but they're all fine. They're all fine. The Democrats are all fine. Not only are they fine, but they're cheering and applauding fire bombings on what are supposed to be comedy shows late night, but they're literally excited, thrilled, and encouraging more political violence, domestic terrorism, and make no mistake, it is most decidedly domestic terrorism. And the Democrat Party, their congressional leadership and their TV hosts, which no difference really, they're all cheering. And the Schumers of the world not saying anything negative about it. It's not January 6th, after all, where Ashley Babbitt was shot and killed. Ah, yes. All right, we have great many stories still to get to today. Right now, let's go to the telephones. Let's go to Barry, calling from Manhattan Island, New York City, New York. Barry, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, hey, how's it going? Love the show. You're fantastic.
Thank you very kindly.
Yeah, you're great. I wanted to address Judge Hosberg and all the variables that you've laid out as to why he was picked.
Uh-huh.
One thing that I've learned from the great Mark Levin, being a student for 25 years, when these judges get picked at the district court level, very often the presidents have to they have to horse trade. So if you go back to that time, it was a 50-50 Senate. So I think he probably had to give up a pick or two and put this guy in because he clearly isn't conservative. So I think maybe someone should ask Karl Rove why this guy was picked.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, but Boasberg was a Yale guy. George W. Bush was a Yale guy. They're both members of Skull and Bones, and you're supposed to look out your Skull and Bones guys. And George Bush didn't really have a political test for everybody. He was kind of a rhino on a lot of things. But then when he was promoted by Barack Obama, Barack Obama applied a political test for Boasberg without doubt. And he wouldn't have elevated him if he didn't know that he was a trustworthy lefty.
Right. I've heard you talk about that variable, but still, I would like to see who was picked at the same time. I tried to look it up. I really couldn't find it, but at the same time that this Hosberg was put in, there was 2, 3, 4 at the same time. Mm-hmm. Levin often talks about how sometimes you have to horse trade to get these people through Congress.
Right.
And the lefties get to put up 1 and you put up 2. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Barry. 100%. And Mark Levin certainly knows everything about it, the ins and outs of all of it. Former chief of staff at the Department of Justice and so on. Great thoughts, Barry.